Okay, this is also part of 6.09, which we're going to refer to as just the special cases. So let's look at a binomial squared first. So when we have a binomial squared, it's something like the quantity 4a minus 3 squared. And so what we are going to do here first is we're going to expand this. Because if you had something like this, then you could raise everything to the second power. But since that minus sign is there, we have to actually expand this and multiply. So this will be 4a minus 3 times the quantity 4a minus 3. Then we can either use the box method or FOIL. So this will be 4a times 4a, 4a times negative 3, negative 3 times 4a, negative 3 times negative 3. Simplified, this is 16a squared minus 12a minus 12a plus 9, which simplifies to 16a squared minus 24a plus 9. So my first question is, and this is for people who don't necessarily want to know the formula, what's the first step when you see a binomial squared? The first step is to expand it. But what do you notice about the first and last terms? Let me highlight them. The first term, 16a squared and 4a. The last term, positive 9 and negative 3. So what do we notice about 4a to 16a squared and negative 3 to 9? Well, if you take 4a and you square it, you'll get 16a squared. 4 squared is 16, a squared is a squared. If you take negative 3 and you square it, negative 3 times negative 3 is a positive 9. So what do you notice? They are the squares of the original problem. Or problem or terms. Okay. So the formula right here, if you have a squared and b squared, a squared is, a is referring to the first term, b is referring to the second term. The formula, like we said, you're going to square the first term, you're going to square the last term. So a squared and plus b squared. Now if we take a look at the middle term, how do we get 24, negative 24 from 4 and negative 3? Well, 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. And negative 12 times 2 is negative 24. So what do? We're going to multiply a times b, which would give us negative 12. Then you multiply that times 2. So plus 2ab. Let me show you how this works. If we were to do this from the original problem, this would be 4a squared plus 2, a is 4a, b is negative 3, plus b squared. Right? 4a squared is 16a squared plus 2 times 4 is 8. 8 times negative 3 is negative 12a plus negative 3 squared is 9. And as you see, you get the same answer. So that's how you can use that. For difference of squares, this one's a little bit more relevant. You'll use this more often. Again, the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to distribute, double distribute. So this is going to be 4a times 4a plus 4a times 3 minus 3 times 4a minus 3 times 3. Simplify, 16a squared plus 12a minus 12a minus 9, which simplifies to 12 minus 12 is 0. 16a squared minus 9. So what unique thing happens when we multiply these binomials? Well, that middle term canceled out. Middle term canceled out, right? We had positive 12a minus 12a, which equals 0. How can we recognize when this will happen? Well, if we look back at the original, they both have a 4a, they both have a 3, but one is a positive and one is a negative. So one's 4a minus 3, one's 4a plus 3. So they have two things. Number one, they have the same terms, but different signs. That's why it's called the difference of squares. Because if they were squares, it'd be 4a minus 3, 4a minus 3. But it's 4a minus 3, 4a plus 3. There's the difference. So what's the fancy formula? Well, let's take a look. Let's highlight just like we did last time. Let me highlight this one. All right. So what did we do here? We did 4a times 4a, which is 16a squared. The middle term cancels out. Then negative 3 times positive 3 is a negative 9. So what is this? A plus b times a minus b will be equal to a squared minus b squared. It's that simple. So if we use this formula, we take a, in this case, which was 4a, and square it, minus b, which was 3, and square it. This would become 16a squared minus 9, if you wanted to use the formula. You don't have to, though. You can always just multiply.